What would your advice be for someone who is interested in street preaching but hasn't done it before, and they want to get out there, go on campus? What would you?
It's kind of like riding a bike. You just gotta go do it. You realize you're gonna fall. You're gonna stink, especially because there are a couple different things. Everything's a bell-shaped curve, and you have your extreme guy who is just not socially aware, and so it often attracts a bunch of different people. And so you have the guy who's just like rude and kind of like your. In simplistic terms, Westboro Baptist Church.
They're adversarial.
Yeah,
anyway,
they're very personality. And so they're drawn to this, and so let's do this, and you're able to give yourself categories. Well, they're sinners, they're wicked, they're bad. Let's go get them, and I can go out there and just run roughshod. And I usually say it's the opposite side of Joel Osteen coin. So Joel Osteen gets big crowds and not really preaching the gospel. Fred Phelps' gang, so to speak. Is the opposite side of the Joel Osteen coin. They're not preaching the gospel, but since they do it with a scowl and hellfire and brimstone, people think that they're antithetical to one another, but they're opposite sides of the same coin. So the person who wants to do it, I would say, first and foremost, it's kind of know what you're talking about, I guess, because I've seen men preach and they don't know what they're talking about. They don't really know the gospel. So obviously, I think part of centrality of someone else going out there preaching is first and foremost knowing the gospel. Knowing you're going to stink and at first, give yourself a little bit of time. Don't just go out there like for a week and be like, oh, well, I stink. I can't get a crowd. Because when I first started off, I would get very small crowds. But it was about 6 weeks in that I think my transition happened. And the transition basically happened on this. Is I met up with a friend of mine, or at the time we weren't friends, but we became friends. And he gave me two pieces of advice. He goes, when you preach, don't apologize for being out here, because I wanted to be the antithesis of Fred Phelps, and so I was like, hey everybody, I'm Keith, you know what I mean, and try to be real upbeat and positive, and people were still like boo and give you a middle finger sort of thing, and so they weren't excited. I thought everyone's just gonna love me and love the preaching, and they didn't. But about 6 weeks in, my friend said, basically you have a message, preach to be heard, and preach in a way where they have to listen to you. Don't hope that they listen to you. Don't come out here and beg. And so come out here, preach, be confident in the message you have, and people will gather to that. And then the other thing was just real practical. If someone asks you a question, he just said, take 2 steps back and project your answer, because if someone would start asking me questions, I didn't want to be rude and shouting my answers, so I'd walk up to them and start talking to them, and next thing I know, if there were other people, I'd cut them off, because I can't be in your face yelling at you, and so I'd cut off any other crowd that I had. So those were the two main pieces that I just go out there and be like, people have to listen to me. I have a gospel to preach. These people have to listen to me. So that's number one, and then number two is like the real practical thing of taking a couple steps back. And since it's like riding a bike, and it's part of being socially aware, is group dynamics. And if you have basic social skills, you can begin to, what people respond to, and you know how people respond, and what you're seeking to do. You are kind of the MC of the day, and you have to realize that. And you can push and poke and prod and calm things down and slow things down, or you can pick things up and just how you respond to things. And once you kind of know kind of the psychology of a crowd and how people respond, because it doesn't matter where I'm at in the country. I can be up in New England and say something, and I know everyone's going, oh, I can be in Southern California, and they're going to go, oh, and so there's a certain dance that takes place on every campus that how people are going to respond to things.
You have to read the audience.
Yeah, and so your responsibility is to read them. So what that practically would look like is, let's just say something like hell. Like, I never mention hell until someone brings it up, even just from a apologetic standpoint. When they're like, you're out here preaching hellfire and brimstone, I was like, I've yet to mention hell. You know what I mean? How can I be preaching hellfire? And they're like, well, and then they kind of, and then we get to discuss hell, or something like homosexuality. So if I have a crowd going already and people want to bring up homosexuality or certain issues that are going to be more emotional, if I already have a crowd, well, I'm just going to punt on that issue, because, it's just going to sidetrack what I'm doing out here. You know what I mean? I have 7,500 people gathered, and I'm actually preaching the gospel. There's no need to go off onto issues that are just going to make the place frothy. Whereas if I have 5 people and they want to bring up sexual morality in general, sort of things, we'll bring that, because it might help bring people in. And so those are the sorts of dynamics you're looking for in just trying to get a crowd, tease out a crowd.